Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In this video we are going to be solving the 2017 WASSCE ICT Practical on database. So this question is all about creating a database table for student scores, designing a data entry form, and creating queries to retrieve specific records. So let's get started. Alright, so we are back once again, and here before us is the question we are going to be working on. Now let's read through the question, then we know what to do next. So 3A, using an appropriate database application. Create a database and save as data in the folder created. Now after that we see a table with some ID names and then the records in them. So the records are the rows, as you can see. Now let's move on to B, which says create the structure for the table above and save as scores. Create a form that will enable users to enter the data in scores and save as S form. C says use the form in 3B to enter the data as shown in the table above. And D, create a query to retrieve data from scores and organize it as shown in the structure below. Then you should save it as what? RO query. Finally, DII says create a query to retrieve all records for level 1 and save as L1 query. So this is the question. We're going to get 15 marks for it. Now the next thing we do is to create our folder. Then we create our database and save it as data. But I already have my folder created. In my previous tutorial, I created a folder and I'm going to use the same folder. So the next thing I'll do is to open my database application, which is our Microsoft Access. So you just open it up and then it should look something like this. So what you want to do next is to click on blank database. Now it's going to ask you for the file name and where you want to save it. So according to the question, our database should be named as what? Data. So save it as data in the folder created. So our file name here is going to be data. Next, we need to save it in the folder we created. So to do that, you click on this icon right to the right. You should open this dialog box. Then you locate your folder. So mine is on my desktop. So I'm going to click on desktop. I'm going to locate the folder, double click it. Then I'll make sure that the file name is data and click on OK. Now I can create my blank database by clicking on create. And this is what it should look like. So looking at the question, we can see that we are done with 3A. Now let's move on to 3B. So 3B says create the structure for the table above and save as scores. So the structure for the table is the field names. That is the structure for this table. So now how do we do that? We come back to our database application. And by default, when you create a blank database, it's going to create a table for you, an empty table with just one field name. So you can either close it and create the table yourself, or you can just edit it. So we are going to edit it. In order to edit it, we need to change the view of the table. Currently, we are in the datasheet view. To confirm that, you go to the top right, you see this icon with the view text below, and then the arrow facing down. So you just click it. And you can see two options, the datasheet view and then the design view. So as I said, we are currently on the datasheet view. In order to edit the structure of this table, we need to go to the design view. So click on design view. It's going to ask you what you want to save the table as. Looking in the question, it says what? Create a structure for the table above and save as scores. So they're going to save it as scores. And click on OK. So now you can see we have tables and under it we have scores. So this is the score table. Next, we need to edit the field names, the data type, so that the structure looks like what we have in our question. Now let me reduce the size of this window application. Okay, so this is good. So now you can see that by default we have an ID field name with its data type. Now we need to make changes. So you can see instead of ID, we have ID number in our question. So we change that from ID to what? ID number. Now for the data type, you have to look at your question. What is the data under it? So you can see that we have 10097, which is a number, and everything below is also a number. So it means that the appropriate data type for ID number would be what? Number. Now the next field name is what? Social. So you come under here and you type social. So what is the appropriate data type for social? Once again, look at the question. So we can see scores 87, 76, 66, 54, 67. All these are also numbers. So instead of short text, we are going to change it to what? Number. You'll notice that for the other field names, the data type is also the same. So we don't need to check. We just go on with typing it out. So English is also a number, French the same, and level. So now this is going to be the structure of our table. Next, we need to save it. In order to save it, you use a shortcut of Ctrl plus S, or you go to the top left corner and you click on this icon, and it's going to save your table. Now, after we saved it, we can change our view back to the datasheet view. So you go here, or you can just click it. So you can see whenever you whenever you are in, let's say you're in the datasheet view, it's going to show the design view icon, and when you go to the design view, it's going to show the datasheet view icon. So that is just something to know. Now that we are in the datasheet view, you can notice that the structure of our table is different. Initially, it just had ID, but now we have ID number, social, French, English, and level. The only thing we are not seeing is our records, and that is expected because we have just created the structure of our table. Now let's move on to BII, which says what? Create a form that will enable users to enter the data in scores and save as S form. So what this question is telling us to do is to create a form, and the form is what we are going to use to enter the data we see in this question into our table here. So the form should also be saved as what? S form. Now how do we do that? We come back to our database application. Let me increase the window size. Then you go to the create tab over here. Now you locate the forms group, which is what we see here. Now you can see that there are various options to choose from. The easiest one I'll go with is to click on the form, the first icon here, which creates a form. So what this does is it's going to create a form based on the structure of this table we have here. So just click it and have a look. All right, so you can see just one click and we've been able to create a form based on the structure of our scores table. So this is how it looks. Now, what do we do next? We need to save our table as S form. So you can either use a shortcut of Ctrl plus S, or you click on this icon, and then it's going to ask you what you want to save your form as, and save it as S form. Click on OK. Also, just like with the scores table, you can also change the view of your form. So right now we are in the layout view. So we have the form view, layout view, and design view. The design view looks something like this. We're in the layout view, and then we have what? The form view. Okay, what's this? Yes, and then we have what? The form view. So the form view is the only view that allows you to enter data into your form. The other two options, they are more like for designing your form, changing the way it looks. So if you want to enter the data, you need to make sure you're in the form view. Now let's move on to the next part of the question, which says C. Use the form in 3BII to enter the data as shown in the table above. So that was what I was trying to explain, that the form that we create, we are going to use it to enter this data into our scores table. So we come back to our form and let's start inputting the data. Okay, so the first ID number we see is what? 10097. Then you can either press the tab key or the enter key to move to the next record automatically. Then okay, let me reduce this a bit so I can see. Yes. Now as for social, we see 87. For English, we see 65. French, we see 77. And then the level is 1. So this is the first record, which is what we have over here. This is the first record. And we've inputted it into our form. Now, how do we add it to our score table? So in order to add it, you can just press the enter key, or you make sure you're in the home tab, look for the records group and click on new, and that will also add it. But the simplest way is just hit on the enter key, and that will automatically add a record to our score table. But when we look at our score table, we don't see the changes. So in order to get the changes, you make sure you have selected your score table, make sure you're in the home tab, locate the records group, and then click on refresh, and that would automatically refresh your table so that the record that we've inputted would now be seen. So you can see the ID number, the scores, and then the level. Now that we know how to input data into a table using a form, let's quickly enter the rest. And I might have to speed up this part of the video so that I don't waste your time. Alright, so as you can see, I've now entered every data into our table using the form. Let's go back to our scores table, refresh and have a look. Okay, so now you can see everything has been entered. The next thing you want to do is to check for the correctness of the data you entered. In case maybe you made a mistake somewhere, then you can correct it. So we can see that everything is the same. The only difference I'm noticing is that the position of the records have changed. But that is not a big deal. It's because of the ID number. So you can see that this ID number is the smallest compared to this one here. So that is just the reason for the repositioning. It's not a big deal. So let's continue with our question. So we can see that we are done with 3A, 3B, and 3C. Now we are on 3D. Then we'll be done with this tutorial. So 3D says what? Create a query to retrieve data from scores and organize it as shown in the structure below. So what is going on here? Basically, what the question is telling us to do is that we should retrieve the data from this score table. And then we just need to organize the positions of our field names. So you notice that in our table, in our default score table, ID number is the first field name, social is the second, English is third, French fourth, and levels fifth. But over here, ID number still remains the first, but level becomes the second, social the third, French fourth, and English fifth. So it's the same as what we have in our score table, just that the position of our field names have changed. And the question wants us to use a query to make those changes, to change the structure of our table. Then we should save it as what? RO query. So how do we do this? In order to do this, very simple. You come to your database application, then you click on the Create tab, locate the queries group. Now we have query wizard and query design. So let's go with the query design, and it's going to look something like this. Now the next thing we need to do is to add our table. So according to the question, it says what? Create a query to retrieve data from scores. So basically, we need to add the scores table so that we can retrieve the data from it. In order to do that, you go to your right, and you should see the tables here. Now, over here, you're going to see every single table that you have created in your database. So currently, we have only the scores table. So you just click on the scores here and click on Add Selected Tables. Now, what you do next is very important. So watch closely. I'll first close this part of the application so that we can get more space. Now we are going to double click on each and every one of these field names, but in the position that we see here. So we see ID number as the first, so you double click on ID number. Then we see level as the second, double click on level, followed by social, French, and English. Now the way we've positioned it is the way it will be displayed when we are looking at our query. So now just click on this run icon and you see what I'm talking about. So I believe you can see now it's the same as the scores table. The only difference is the position has changed. So in our scores table, social is the second, but in our query now we see level as the second. This clock is very annoying, but pardon. So yes, so as I was saying, you can see that ID number is the first, level is the second, then social is third. So basically, it's the same as scores table, just that we've repositioned or changed the structure of the table a bit. That is what the question wants us to do. Next, we need to save our query as what? RO query. So you remember how to save. Either use a shortcut of Ctrl+S or you click on this icon. It's going to ask you the query name. Then you type in RO query, click on OK. So now you can see we have a table, we have a form. Now we also have a query here, which is RO query. Let's continue. DII, create a query to retrieve all records for level 1 and save as L1 query. So what does this mean? It means that we should create another query, but this time we are only retrieving records that have a level of 1. So when you look at your scores table, you see that there are only 2 records. This record over here, it has a level of 1, and this record here, it also has a level of 1. The rest have a level of 2 or 3, so they are not included. How do we do this? Once again, you go to your Create tab, look for the queries group and click on Query Design. Then you add your scores table. This time we don't need to worry about the positioning of our field name because the question didn't ask us to change the position. So we can just select it the way we see it. ID number first, social second, English third, French fourth, and level fifth. Okay, so now here is the important part. Over here, so we can see we have sort, show, criteria, and all. We are concerned with the criteria. and we are more particularly about the criteria for the level. So over here, we are going to type in 1. So what does this mean? It means that we want you to display the ID number from scores table, the social scores from the score table, the English scores from the score table, same with the French, and the level, provided that the level is 1. So it means that if if it gets to a record and it sees that the level is 2 or 3, it will not display it, it will ignore it. So now click on the run icon and you'll see what I mean. So you click on 1 and you see that now it's displaying only records that have a level of 1. Also, another bonus thing I want to show. So you can see there's a show, and with a show we have some check boxes. So if we were to uncheck 1, it means that we don't want to see the French score. So when you run it, have a look. It will display everything without the French score. Now let's go back and just check it. This is just something I wanted to show, by the way. So yeah, this is how we solve DII. Now the next thing we do is to save it. So click on the icon here, the save icon, then you save it as L1 query and click on OK. So yes, this is the total solution to the question we have over here. You can also save the final changes, and that'll be it. We've created our scores table, our form in which we use to enter data into our scores table. We created an arrow query to retrieve all records from the scores table by changing the structure of our table, and then an L1 query to retrieve records that have a level of 1. This is the total solution to this question, and I hope this video was useful. Please, if that's the case, then support my channel by giving this video a thumbs up, hit on the subscribe button, and the bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. So thank you for watching, and bye for now.